Your soulmate is about to confess they're married. But that's not the biggest secret. My beloved child, something has been sitting behind their silence, and the moment has finally arrived when keeping it hidden feels harder than revealing it. Your soulmate is preparing to tell you something you never expected to hear: they are married. But don't skip, because that confession is only the first layer of what they have been carrying. There is another truth behind it, something so unexpected that it changes the meaning of everything you thought you understood about their distance, their hesitation, and the strange way they kept pulling close only to become quiet again. For a long time, they rehearsed this conversation inside their mind. They imagined your expression. They wondered whether you would understand why they waited. They almost told you before, but every time the moment arrived, something inside them stopped. Now that hesitation is disappearing. Something has shifted, and they know they cannot keep pretending that everything is simple. Stay till the end, because the biggest secret is not the marriage itself. The biggest secret is connected to why they entered your life while carrying a story they never fully explained. And when you understand that part, their recent behavior may suddenly make sense. Something huge is waiting for you. There is a reason their energy around you has felt different. They have been thinking about one question again and again: what happens when they finally know everything? They know the first confession could surprise you, but what truly keeps them awake in thought is what comes immediately afterward. Don't skip. They have been protecting another truth that reaches deeper than their relationship status. They never expected you to become this important to them. At first, they believed they could keep their feelings separate from the complicated reality they were already living. They believed time would make everything clearer. Instead, every passing day made one thing harder to ignore: you became the person they could not simply forget. Your words stayed with them after conversations ended. Small things reminded them of you. Even when they tried to focus elsewhere, their thoughts somehow returned to the same place. But here is where everything turns. Their marriage is connected to a chapter of their life that is not what you may immediately assume, and they know explaining that chapter will require more than one sentence. They are preparing to reveal how long they have been carrying this secret, why they never told you sooner, and what happened behind closed doors that completely changed the way they see their future. Stay till the end, because the next truth is the one they fear you will misunderstand most. And now the part they have been avoiding is getting closer. Your soulmate has realized that silence could cost them something they never thought they would care this deeply about: the possibility of losing your trust before you ever knew the complete story. That realization changed them. They no longer want you receiving pieces of the truth while missing the one detail that connects everything. Don't skip, because this is where their confession becomes far bigger than "I'm married." There is a decision attached to this confession. A decision they have quietly been considering while you knew nothing about it. They have been looking at their past, their present, and the future they secretly imagine, and for the first time they are admitting to themselves that they cannot continue living between what everyone expects and what their heart keeps telling them. But there is still one final secret they have not found the courage to say aloud, the secret that explains why meeting you affected them so deeply in the first place. Something huge is waiting for you, because when that secret finally comes forward, you may realize this story began much earlier than you thought. And the next thing they are preparing to reveal could completely change what you believe their silence has meant all along. The silence is about to break in a way you never expected, because your soulmate has reached the point where hiding the complete truth feels impossible. My beloved child, what they are preparing to reveal now goes far beyond the words, "I'm married." Don't skip, because that was only the doorway into the real confession. For months, perhaps longer, they have carried a truth they believed they could keep separate from their feelings for you. They told themselves they could remain quiet. They convinced themselves that eventually these emotions would become smaller. But something unexpected happened instead. Every attempt to push you out of their thoughts made your presence feel stronger. And now they understand why. You didn't simply enter their life at an ordinary moment. You appeared when they had already begun questioning whether the life they were living still reflected who they had become. That is the detail they were afraid to tell you. Their private world had been changing long before you understood what was happening. Stay till the end, because the marriage is not the biggest secret. The biggest secret is the decision they started considering after realizing they could no longer ignore what their heart had been telling them. They have replayed conversations with you, remembered tiny details you probably forgot, and wondered how different everything might have been if they had met you at another time. But something huge is waiting for you, because they recently stopped asking, "What if?" and started asking themselves a completely different question: "What am I going to do now?" And their answer surprised even them. Something changed inside them the moment they realized you might eventually stop waiting for clarity. That possibility shook their certainty. Suddenly, the idea of remaining silent no longer felt easier than speaking. Don't skip, because this is where the confession becomes much deeper. They know you deserve the complete story, not carefully selected pieces, and they are preparing to explain why they stayed quiet even when there were moments when they desperately wanted to tell you everything. They were afraid that revealing one truth would force them to reveal all of it. Their marriage. Their confusion. Their growing feelings. And finally, the decision they have quietly been making about their future. But here comes the surprising part: they have already imagined the conversation with you. They know the first words they want to say. They know which truth must come first. And they know there is one question you may ask that they cannot avoid anymore: why didn't you tell me sooner? Their answer has been sitting inside them for longer than you realize. It wasn't because you meant too little. It was because you began meaning far more than they had planned. Stay till the end. They started noticing that the connection with you was changing how they looked at everything else. Suddenly, choices they once accepted without questioning began feeling different. Their future no longer looked exactly the way they had imagined it. And somewhere inside that realization came another secret, one they have told almost nobody. Now listen closely, because this is the point where everything begins connecting. Your soulmate has been holding back one final piece of information about why they became so emotionally affected by you, and it has nothing to do with a random moment or temporary curiosity. Something about you reminded them of a promise they once made to themselves, a promise about the kind of connection they would never ignore if they were fortunate enough to experience it. They thought that promise belonged to another version of themselves. Then you appeared, and suddenly they remembered it. Don't skip. They have been comparing what they feel around you with everything they believed love and connection were supposed to feel like, and the comparison has forced them to confront something they can no longer pretend not to see. Something huge is waiting for you, because their biggest secret is not simply that they are married, it is that meeting you caused them to reconsider a future they once believed was already decided. And now they are preparing to tell you exactly what they discovered about themselves during that process. There is one specific realization they have not yet spoken aloud, because once those words leave their mouth, nothing can return to the comfortable silence that existed before. They know it. You may soon know it too. And what they are preparing to admit next explains why their behavior changed so suddenly, and why this confession may only be the beginning. Something happened inside your soulmate that they can no longer explain away, and this is where the story takes a completely unexpected turn. My beloved child, they thought revealing their marriage would be the hardest part of this confession, but they were wrong. Don't skip, because the truth sitting behind that confession is far more personal. They have been quietly examining every choice that brought them to this exact moment, and one realization keeps returning: meeting you changed the questions they were asking about their own life. Before you appeared, they believed certain chapters were already written. They believed they understood where they belonged, what they should accept, and which dreams needed to remain dreams. Then your presence disrupted that certainty. Not because you demanded anything from them, but because something about your connection reminded them what it felt like to be completely understood. Stay till the end, because this is where their biggest secret begins revealing itself. They have imagined telling you everything more times than you could possibly know. They imagined sitting across from you without excuses, without half-truths, and finally saying what has been building inside them. But every imagined conversation reaches the same moment, the moment when they have to admit that their feelings for you became impossible to dismiss much earlier than they ever showed. Something huge is waiting for you, because there was one particular moment when they realized you were no longer simply someone they thought about occasionally. You had become connected to the future they secretly pictured when nobody else was listening, but there is another layer they have kept completely hidden. Don't skip. Your soulmate has been afraid that once you know they are married, you might stop listening before hearing the rest of the story. That possibility is exactly why they waited so long. They wanted to find the perfect words, but perfect words never came. Instead, the truth kept growing heavier. They began noticing how much energy they were spending pretending everything was normal. A conversation with you could stay in their thoughts for hours. A small memory could suddenly bring back feelings they thought they had successfully buried. And whenever they imagined you moving forward without them, one question appeared again: what if I waited too long to be truthful? That question changed something. Stay till the end, because they recently reached a private conclusion that surprised them. They realized they cannot control how you respond to their confession, but they can control whether you finally receive the truth. And that truth includes something you were never supposed to discover this way. They had already started reconsidering major parts of their future before they ever found the courage to speak to you. Your presence did not create every question inside them, but it made those questions impossible to keep ignoring. Now they are preparing to explain what had already been changing in their life, and why meeting you became the moment that brought everything into focus, and this is where the secret becomes bigger than the title itself. Your soulmate isn't only preparing to confess what their life looks like today, they want to reveal what they have quietly decided they cannot keep pretending about tomorrow. Don't skip, because they have reached a crossroads they never expected to face. They know no meaningful future can be built from hidden information, and that is why their next move begins with complete honesty rather than promises. They want you to understand the truth before you decide what place, if any, they should have in your life. But something huge is waiting for you, because there is still one revelation they have saved until the very end. It concerns the first time they realized their connection with you was different. They remember the moment. They remember what you said. They remember what happened inside them immediately afterward. And from that day forward, they began carrying a thought they were almost afraid to acknowledge. What if this person entered my life for a reason I haven't understood yet? Stay till the end, because what they did after having that thought is the part you still don't know. They made a private choice. They kept something connected to you, and when you discover what it was, and why they could never bring themselves to let it go, the entire meaning of their silence may change. Now the hidden piece finally begins to surface, and it explains why your soulmate could never completely silence what they felt. My beloved child, there was something connected to you that they quietly kept, not because they wanted to live inside the past, but because it represented the exact moment they realized this connection had become meaningful. Maybe it was a message, a sentence you once said, a memory of an ordinary conversation, or simply the way you made them feel understood when they needed it most. Whatever it was, they returned to that memory whenever they tried convincing themselves that you meant nothing more. Don't skip, because every time they revisited it, the same realization returned stronger: their feelings were not disappearing. And that terrified their carefully organized world, because they knew there was still something important you didn't know. They were married. They had responsibilities, history, and choices that could not simply be erased. But stay till the end, because instead of making promises behind someone else's back, they started understanding that the only fair path forward was honesty. They knew you deserved to hear the complete truth before deciding what you wanted. Something huge is waiting for you, because the secret behind their marriage isn't some simple dramatic twist. It is the fact that their life had already become emotionally complicated long before they admitted what your presence meant to them. And now they are preparing to stop hiding behind silence, but what they discovered about themselves afterward surprised them even more. They realized that confessing feelings was not enough. They needed to take responsibility for the reality surrounding those feelings. Don't skip. They have been asking themselves questions they avoided for a long time. What do I truly want? What is fair to everyone involved? What truth have I been afraid to face? And most importantly, can I finally speak honestly without asking anyone to wait for me or accept uncertainty? Those questions changed the way they planned this confession. They no longer want to arrive with beautiful words and impossible promises. They want to arrive with truth. Stay till the end, because that distinction matters. They know you may be surprised. They know you may need space to understand everything. And they know you have every right to choose what happens after hearing them. Yet there is one thing they cannot continue doing: allowing you to believe an incomplete version of who they are. Something huge is waiting for you, because while they were preparing to confess their marriage, they discovered another truth about themselves. They had been using silence to postpone a decision they already knew they needed to confront. And recently, something happened that made postponing it feel impossible. That moment came when they imagined you learning everything from somewhere else. Suddenly, they pictured you realizing they had known the truth all along while saying nothing, and that thought changed their entire approach. My beloved child, they understood that losing your trust would matter more than protecting their image. Don't skip, because this is why their next conversation may sound different from anything you expected. They are preparing to tell you the truth without demanding an answer, without asking you to immediately understand, and without pretending the situation is simpler than it is. But there is still one final revelation behind all of this. Something huge is waiting for you, because during those quiet days of reflection, your soulmate made a discovery about the exact reason they kept returning emotionally to you. It wasn't only attraction. It wasn't only curiosity. You represented something they believed had disappeared from their life, the feeling of being seen without having to perform. And once they recognized that, they could never completely forget it. Now the confession is getting closer, and the next truth they are preparing to reveal is the one that explains everything. The moment they first realized they could no longer continue living as though their deepest feelings did not exist, the moment they finally understood everything did not arrive loudly. It came during a quiet moment when there was nobody around to distract them from the truth. My beloved child, your soulmates suddenly realized that they had spent so much time trying to control what they felt that they had never asked themselves why your presence affected them this deeply. And when they finally asked, the answer changed everything. Don't skip, because this is where the biggest secret begins moving closer to the surface. They realized they were not simply afraid of confessing that they were married. They were afraid of admitting what happened inside them after meeting you. You awakened a part of them they thought had gone completely silent, the part that still believed life could feel different, conversations could feel effortless, and someone could understand them without needing endless explanations. Stay till the end, because once they recognized this, they went back through every memory they had of you. Suddenly, tiny moments became important. Words you probably forgot became impossible for them to forget. Even your silence had meaning to them. And then came the thought that changed their entire perspective. What if hiding everything was eventually going to hurt more than simply telling you the truth? Something huge is waiting for you, because from that moment forward, they stopped planning how to keep this secret and started thinking about how to reveal it honestly. But there was still one thing they had to decide before approaching you, whether they were prepared to accept whatever response you gave them after hearing everything. That decision became their greatest internal test. Don't skip, because your soulmate knows they cannot reveal something this important and then expect you to immediately respond the way they hope. They understand that your trust matters. They understand that being married changes the entire meaning of what they are confessing. And for the first time, they are preparing themselves not only to speak, but to listen. Yet something happened while they were thinking about this conversation. They imagined you looking directly at them and asking one simple question: if this connection mattered so much, why did you keep the truth from me? They had no easy answer. Stay till the end, because eventually they admitted the real answer to themselves. They were afraid that the moment you knew everything, they could no longer control what happened next. Silence allowed them to keep imagining possibilities. Truth would force reality to begin. And that realization shook them, because it showed them how deeply they had become emotionally attached to an outcome they could never guarantee. Something huge is waiting for you. Instead of running from that uncertainty again, they decided the next chapter had to begin differently, with honesty, boundaries, and respect for your choice. They no longer want to hide behind beautiful possibilities. They want you to know exactly where things stand. But the most surprising truth is still coming, because during this process they uncovered something about the timing of your connection that they had never told you, and this is the detail that could completely change how you interpret everything that happened between you. My beloved child, Before your soulmate ever showed obvious signs of being affected by you, they had already noticed something unusual. Whenever they reached a moment of uncertainty about their future, somehow their thoughts returned to you. At first they dismissed it. Then it happened again. And again. Don't skip, because eventually they stopped treating it as coincidence and began asking why your memory appeared whenever they thought about the life they truly wanted. They discovered that you had become connected in their mind with honesty, the very thing they had been avoiding. Stay till the end, because that is why this confession is approaching now. They are not simply trying to tell you that they are married. They are preparing to reveal that knowing you forced them to confront questions about themselves that had existed long before you arrived. And something huge is waiting for you, because there is one question they have finally answered privately, a question they refused to answer for a very long time. If nobody else were deciding what my future should look like, what would I choose for myself? Their answer stunned them. They have not told you what it is yet. They have barely admitted it aloud. But once that answer becomes part of the confession, you will finally understand why they could no longer remain silent, and why what comes next may be the most important truth they have shared with you yet. The answer they discovered in that private moment was not what they expected, and once it became clear, they could no longer return to the person they had been before. My beloved child, your soulmate finally admitted something they had avoided for far too long. They wanted a life built around truth, not appearances, expectations, or endless silence. Don't skip, because this does not mean they suddenly have every answer. In fact, the revelation frightened them precisely because it demanded responsibility. They realized that before they could ever ask for a place in your future, they had to become completely honest about their present. That meant telling you they were married. That meant explaining what had been happening inside their life before you arrived. And most importantly, it meant refusing to make you responsible for decisions that belonged to them. Stay till the end, because something huge is waiting for you. They have stopped imagining a confession where they simply tell you how strongly they feel and expect everything to magically become simple. Instead, they are preparing for a conversation where nothing important remains hidden. They know you may ask difficult questions. They know your view of them may change. But they would rather face an uncertain truth than continue protecting a comfortable illusion. And here is the surprising part: while preparing themselves for that conversation, they discovered that the biggest secret was never only about their marriage. It was about how long they had secretly known that something in their life needed to change. For a long time, they kept telling themselves, not yet. Not yet to the difficult questions. Not yet to complete honesty. Not yet to admitting that the future they once accepted no longer felt certain. Then you entered the picture, and every excuse became harder to believe. Don't skip, because there was one particular realization that finally shattered their hesitation. They understood that you might never know how much you influenced them unless they told you, but they also understood something even more important: your presence could not become an excuse for choices they themselves needed to own. That changed everything. They began separating two truths that had become tangled together: the truth about their existing life and the truth about what they feel when they think about you. Stay till the end, because this is exactly why their confession has taken so long. They wanted to understand those truths before placing them in your hands. And now they finally do. Something huge is waiting for you, because they are preparing to say something they once believed they would never have the courage to admit. you did not create the questions inside me. You made me realize I could no longer keep running from them. Those